What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It's your boy, Adam Perez. I'm back once again with a brand new episode review as we're going to get into episode number 5 of the Rings of Power Season 2. First and foremost, I apologize about my voice. I wind up losing my voice at the end of A-Plus Hero Report on Sunday. I haven't had a voice all Sunday, all Monday. This is actually my recovery day on Tuesday. How great do I sound? And I got to go to work tomorrow too, so yay me. But I really wanted to do this regardless of my voice because I want to go ahead and get this episode out before episode number 6 winds up dropping later on this week. And plus, we got a bunch of other shows coming too. Agatha All Along premieres. And then also, we got The Penguin premiering this week too. So, a lot of content certainly coming your way. So, I need this throat to get better. But, guys, let's go ahead and dive into episode number 5, which I thought was probably the best one of the season so far, in a sense of how things are really kind of coming together. It's kind of a bummer. And in reality, that we got 3 episodes left. This is a series that I really wish was like 10 episode seasons or a little bit longer, to be honest with you. There's just so much to enjoy. This week we had like 3 storylines going all at once. We revisited Numenor this week. We also had the King Durin and the dwarf storyline interlaced with the bigger story arc here, which was the mind F, if you will, of Celebrimbor and his new partner in Annatar, aka Sauron. It was pretty interesting. You know, it's fascinating seeing Celebrimbor and all the like ups and downs that his emotional, how his ups and downs of just where he is, his mindset wise. He's able to recognize that Annatar is, I don't want to say twisting his mind, but that Annatar has a way, like he mentions at the beginning of this episode, of implanting thoughts and ideas and letting that person believe that they created this idea or really sort of attach themselves to it and just build upon it and kind of go forth with whatever it is that Annatar really wants, but makes them think that it was their idea all along. And it's just so fascinating, the fact that even though he calls him out on it, he still allows himself to kind of go down that path. And I think there's a part of Celebrimbor that can certainly recognize that. And I think he recognizes that towards the end of the episode when he sort of looks at his hands in a sense to say of like, what have I done? Like, what have I sort of created? Like, why am I allowing myself to kind of go down this path? But he definitely feels like he's painting himself into a corner. He's lied to his king. He's got his hubris in the sense of, even though Annatar says you should tell your king, he's like, no, I can't tell him. He doesn't want to get in trouble. He doesn't want to lose his ability to be a craftsmith anymore. And so instead of admitting his faults and stopping, he's sort of like forced to plunge forward in a sense of trying to redeem himself, almost like the king will forgive him for making rings for men, when I'm pretty sure his king would probably highly advise him, don't do it. And even though Celebrimbor himself knows the faults of men, what men have sort of put Middle Earth through in the sense of backing somebody like Morgoth and Sauron and Adar, earlier, and causing a lot of disruption on Middle Earth and just in the world in general. And so even though Celebrimbor understands the greed and the power that men want, he still dives in a sense of allowing Annatar to put these thoughts and these ideas in your mind, and you build upon it. And he did it again in the middle of this episode, in convincing Celebrimbor we're just gonna have to power through and finish the job in an attempt to redeem ourselves. Annatar is just I don't know if quizzical is the word that I'm looking for, but he really knows how to get into people's minds. I mean, he gets into the young lady's mind to kind of convince her that The person in flames that she saw is Celebrimbor, who might be sort of losing his mind a little bit. He's definitely pushing Celebrimbor to that point to where even the girl at the end of this episode is looking at him like, yeah, Annatar is probably right, even though it's Annatar who's in the very room, who's the person that she's actually seen. He convinces her that it's actually Celebrimbor. And again, the fact that he does it to Celebrimbor in here just goes to show you just how powerful Sauron is. The gentleman that plays Annatar, um, I like him so much better this season than I did the first season. He's got these great looks about him that you could just constantly tell like he's plotting the entire time. That he's, I don't want to say necessarily one step ahead of everybody, but it definitely feels like that. That things are all sort of going according to plan, yet he wants the other people around him to think that it's all their plan. Um, and just the looks that he gives when Celebrimbor touches his arm, the way that he looks at his arm, like, why is this guy touching me? Right? Like he's just got this fakeness about him and his determination to allow his plot and his plan to kind of go forward and by all means necessary. So I've really loved this actor. Well, I didn't care for his Halbrand in season 1, but I'm loving his Annatar and Sauron in season 2 because you're seeing his mischievous ways, his the deceit, and it really comes across extremely well on the screen. I'm a really big fan of it. But we'll see where this takes Celebrimbor. I can't believe he's decided to make rings for men, but for me, as somebody who was a fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy movie at least, and the book itself, to kind of see how these rings are getting forged and how they're coming to power and the power that they possessed. You know, we saw the rings of the elves sort of help heal their land. And I love the fact that in this episode, we get to see the rings for the dwarves sort of do the same thing. It was really cool to see King Durin using the ring to be able to find spots within his mountain, to allow sunshine to kind of go in. And it's even cooler when he explains to his son later in the episode that he can see the mountain, the crevices, right? The creatures, the jewels. He can see it all, sort of thing. I think it's a really cool power, but clearly a power that will certainly ruin a person in here. And so, even though Celebrimbor has been warned by Durin the Fourth, and even though he himself has some questions, even for Annatar, and questioning whether or not he did anything to the rings, it is just fascinating to see it flipped on Celebrimbor in a sense of like, I didn't do anything, maybe we did, in regards to making Celebrimbor really feel at fault for deceiving his king, even though it was Annatar who suggested something, knowing that Celebrimbor was going to push back and decide, no, we're going forward, and allow him to write that letter in the first place. So Annatar is just an incredible character in here, and I love what he's. I love watching what he's been doing to Celebrimbor, even though from a character perspective, it's so frustrating. It's like, no, bro, don't listen to this guy. But he's doing such a damn good job acting and performance-wise. So, yeah, I'm a really big fan of that storyline. A quick honorable mention, too, for the Door of Durin. I love the connection to the trilogy itself in regards to it being the west gate to the mountain, where we get to see in Fellowship of the Ring Gandalf and the rest of the hobbits in them and the Fellowship enter Khazad-dûm through that very door. So really cool Easter egg, I thought, in regards to like a symbolism of the dwarves and the elves working together for this particular moment and why that door was created. So really cool stuff in that regards. The King Durin stuff is fascinating too. I love that his son recognizes, like, my dad is not who he used to be since he's been wearing this ring. It is fascinating to me, King Durin wanting to, I want to say sell the rings, but, you know, have the other dwarves give him something for it. When I'm pretty sure that was not the the purpose of the rings in the first place, right? I'm pretty sure they were supposed to just be handed to the seven dwarves, but seven dwarves. But clearly King Durin has something else in mind that requires him to gain more power and more greed and more money, and not necessarily listening to anybody else's warnings, if you will. There's a really great scene in here where he's talking to the gentleman about where he should start mining next, right? And he looks at his hand and he realizes the ring is gone. And I love that moment of panic. Where did it go? Have you seen it? Where did it go? And the guy points it out and says, oh, you took it off because you said your hand was heavy. And he had that moment of realization, and he looks at the guy and says, I did. You know, like he recognizes that the ring is doing something to him. And yet, despite that, he still sits down and he puts the ring back on. So it immediately goes to show you just the temptation that the ring has, the power that it certainly calls for, and how there's a level of addiction already to it, you know, that he has to have it. When it's not there, where did it go, right? He's got to have it at all times. So I thought that was actually pretty powerful in regards to how they showcased the effects that it truly is having on King Durin, that, you know, people aren't just going crazy and saying stuff that, no, it's really sort of affecting him that way. And despite the fact of his son warning him of an ancient evil deep inside of Khazad-dûm, which will turn out to be the Balrog at some point in time in this season, he's decided to go ahead and push forward because he thinks he knows better. And that's the power of the rings. Deceiving, corruptible, to certainly say the least. But I'm a big fan of that storyline too. The Numenor stuff, man. Let me tell you something. I think what's fascinating to me, and what I thought was a really clever move on their part, you know, while Celebrimbor and Annatar are talking about the corruptibility of men and what making a ring for them would truly mean, I love the fact that it goes from that scene right to Numenor, to the brand new king, where he's standing beside his son and he's looking in the distance. And the son asks him a question of like, you know, isn't this power sort of like enough? You know, like, you've acquired everything that you've wanted. Like, you're on the throne now. Isn't that enough for you? And you can see that this man clearly wants more. Even though he's got the scepter, even though he's got the throne, he's looking outward. He wants to conquer. He wants more. And this is the people that you want to go ahead and make rings for, bro? Like, I just thought it was really clever editing and placement of choice. Clever editing and a smart choice to place the very next scene after that to be Numenor and men, and just to truly show the corruptibility and the idea of like, yeah, we're gonna give these dudes some rings. So I thought that from a storyline standpoint, I thought that was a pretty brilliant move on their part. So not only do we have the king looking for more power, but man, at least I don't maybe that is his son. Yes, that is his son. Him and Valandir have not liked each other at all. The death of Valandir in here may be like the most shocking and unexpected death that like really hit me. And I say that in the sense of, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that they would kill him off, but I also feel terrible for Arondir. I mean, this guy's lost everything. Anybody that's been close to him, this dude is seemingly lost. I don't know how this man survives, honestly. How he continues to push through. I'll be interested to see like where his mindset is in next week's episode and just for the remainder of this season. That he thinks he's lost his son, and now he's lost Valandir too, who he certainly looked at as a son, who was close to him in regards to his ship guard, his sea guard or whatever. But Valandir doing the commendable thing, not killing the king's son, even though the king's son literally tried to drown him. And despite sparing his life, the son gets his retribution by killing him and stabbing him in the back. I mean, in an attempt to, I would say, probably live up to what his father and his mother had envisioned for him. Like the fact that the king told him his story about, your mom visioned that you were gonna die ill, to prove yourself, sort of thing. That's what this feels like. And he's definitely going down a dark path. And so, look, I don't care for him, and I don't care for Elendil's daughter. Like, me and the girlfriend just shit talked those two characters like all episode long. My girlfriend was pissed at the death of Elendil. She was probably more shocked than me. Like, I had a feeling something was gonna happen. I kept telling myself, like, don't turn your back on this dude. Don't drop that sword. Don't turn your back. So there's a part of like anticipation, and then when it did happen, oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. But we'll see what happens with Elendil. I am curious about the queen and the Palantir. She talks about the idea that when she saw a vision, it was the destruction of Numenor. But I would assume, if anything, the king probably sees something significantly different in it when he looks in it. And clearly, Arendil also did as well. I think she even asks him, like, what did you see when you looked into it? And so I'm curious if she's reading it right. I don't necessarily know if just because somebody new looks into it and sees something different, if that means the future of Numenor is different, or if that just means people are just seeing different visions that speak true to just them. And so the destruction of Numenor, I still think, is definitely a possibility. How it's going to happen, who definitely knows, but I think it's definitely a possibility. But I cannot wait for next week's episode. We are definitely building up to a huge battle. And we got the orcs right outside of Eregion. I'm assuming those are Adar's orcs also. I don't think, I don't know, or are they Saurons, or are they both, right? I'm under the impression that they're Adars, and Sauron said, let me go to Eregion. I'll get things set up and ready. You guys sort of meet me there. I felt like that was the mentality that Sauron gave Annatar. But with them trying to forge forward and make 9 rings for men with the orcs literally at their doorstep, I'm thinking to myself, are you guys going to have enough time to make all these rings? No, we're getting set for a really big battle. And I can't wait to see the elves and orcs and whoever else certainly might get involved. I mean, even the king of the elves mentions, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, mentions like we can't defeat him alone. And so even though at the end we get teased of Galadriel and Adar, I am curious if they will come to the realization that the person that Adar had captured and released was Sauron himself. I would assume that Galadriel would tell him that, and maybe she forces Adar to work with her. We will definitely see, but it's definitely leading up to a great sort of last 3 episodes of the season. Very much like season 1 did. It felt like a 3-part finale. But yeah, guys, overall, I personally can't wait. A great episode. What did you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And we'll definitely be back next week with a brand new episode review for you guys. But until then, do me a big favor, as always, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later.